Ever wondered how you can become a top sales professional, even if you have an obscure background? Today, Chase Barmore shares his unique journey from entrepreneur to sales rep, and he reveals how he's closing big deals, driving sales conversations that are engaged, and more importantly, unconventional meeting strategies that you probably haven't heard before to make sure that people actually want to take the next step with you. So on today's episode of Meeting Momentum, Winning Strategies for Sales, we're going to talk exactly how you can transform your sales approach into a winning approach when it comes to sales meetings. Let's dive right in. Chase, really excited to be having a conversation with you today. One of the things I want to talk about is how you said you're a recovering entrepreneur turned salesperson. I haven't heard that too often. Could you unpack that for the audience so they're just like, what in the world is he saying before we get into how you run impactful meetings?
Yeah, so recovering entrepreneur turned SaaS sales executive. So let me unpack that a little bit. So I came into the AE SaaS world via basically me and my wife. We had a juice bar and smoothie bar for about 10 years. Very successful, had multiple locations, and this little thing happened called COVID and completely shut us down. And so we were forced to shut down our brick and mortar store. And then we got into a D2C model. And basically we were going against like Daily Harvest. We try to do like a smoothie subscription service where we're selling it online, and we tried everything. I mean, we did all the manufacturing. I thought that was going to be the hardest part, but really what the hardest part was ads. And actually advertising. And that's what actually got me into SaaS. So I was a part of Shopify for startups, and I went to my rep there, and I was like, basically, I'm not making enough money. And I was like, what do you suggest me to do? And she's like, I think you should get into SaaS sales. And I was like, well, what the heck is SaaS sales? And she's like, well, that's all those back end platforms like, email, all these different platforms like Calendly, a bunch of different SaaS tools. And I was like, well, cool. And that's what just got me into the world of SaaS. And so I think I come from, and this really goes into what we're talking about. I think one of the things that helps me with my selling techniques is the buyers that I'm selling to, I've actually been in their seat. And I can empathize with what they're going through and really being able to talk about, what happens if we're not able to make payroll next week, or if we're not able to hit forecast or whatever, really talking to that pain and being like level to level with people. So yeah, that's the recovering entrepreneur turned SaaS sales executive.
So I want to actually unpack, you said being level to level with people and uncovering their pain points. So can you tell me about your experience now as a sales rep, and what are you doing to uncover those pain points as a salesperson?
This is a great question. So one of the things first off, you can utilize your pre-meeting, basically when a demo is coming in or somebody's filling out a meeting, ask those specific questions like, why are you coming to this meeting? Like, what's their website? Things like that. Sometimes you'll have the person like even type in like, what is their pain point before you even get into the meeting. But especially when I'm talking to them in the very first part of just like meeting them, understanding like where do they sit at, what is their actual level in the company? Are they a CEO? Are they, mid-level? Are they frontline? And asking what piqued your curiosity to take the call today. And a lot of times you'll hear that pain when you just understand like, why did the person actually book the meeting with you?
Yeah, I think that's also a big piece as well, as listening and taking action on that. And it actually brings up a stat. So, with Calendly, we're doing the state of the meetings report. And one of the things that they say in there is that 50% of sales professionals have the most meetings over every role, and half of them spend 5 more hours in every meeting. So every day. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because how do you make sure that you are doing active listening on your sales calls when you have so many sales meetings in the day? How do you keep everything together?
Good question. And this is, I think, where a lot of people are they can really burn themselves out, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel, but you do need to pre-plan before your meetings. So having a script, it can be very baseline, and there's other like tools you can utilize to see inside of the actual meetings to where you can follow those scripts, but really understand basically, what are you first going to ask? What are your bucket questions, and then going really into disco and then really understanding what's going on, but just have that framework ready to go. I think that's a great plan of action.
And what's that? Could you dive a little bit more into that framework?
Yeah, I would say like opening call, like 1-to-1, introduce yourself, set the agenda. And this really like allows you to basically, you don't want to, I used to do this all the time in meetings, and I would say like, oh, how you doing? And we would talk about the weather.
What's the weather?
Yeah. And sometimes it's like you only have 30 minutes and you really got to keep it tight.
Yep.
And so I think when you say, what I've learned is when you just say like, hey, great to meet you. Is it cool if I just set a quick agenda? And when you do that, that puts you in the driver's seat. And then you can then go into that pain question of asking, so what piqued your curiosity to actually book this call? From that, it's your time to actually, you're not trying to put words into the person's mouth. You're really there. You really need to step back and not be on your CRM, not be looking at these other like social medias or any of these other tools. You need to listen, active listen, and understand like, why did they bring that call? And if it really is like a service level, like, oh, I'm just checking out the tool. It's like people aren't just going out there to check out tools. It's like really what's going on in the business that you're actually looking at X and what happens there. And then you just start to peel the layer of the onion back and really tell the person, I like to say it also is, if we're not a good fit, we'll just end this conversation now. We don't have to waste each other's time. So you're really not forcing a like pitch slap sale, but you're really genuine and you're showing that your time is valuable and their time is valuable as well.
You talk about having those pain questions. I think you did a great job breaking that down so people get in the sales meeting. I want to talk about what you do maybe before that meeting to prepare yourself and get yourself in order. And so one of the things that I do myself in my sales cycles as a founder, so roles reversed as a founder, is I have sales questions already prepared on pain points based on the persona that I'm about to talk to. And according to the State of Meetings report as well, 41% of sales professionals meetings are with external attendees. So do you have a list of like 5 to 7 questions that you already know you're going to ask going into the call? Or are you saying, that's not really what my focus is. It's more on this framework and like the act of listening, or it's a mix of both?
So I would say it's a mix of both, and you really do need to understand, again, that goes to the empathy level of who are you talking to? And you need to already have it planned out, just like your questions of what you're going to ask those people. But if it's a really quick meeting and you're always talking to sort of the same person at that same seat, another way that you can actually show that person that you're actually a expert, a subject matter expert, is saying, I've talked to 1,000 people in your space, and these are typically the 3 pain points that they're all having. Does this sound like you? And that allows you to show like you do know the pain points that these people are typically having. But if you're totally off mark, then the person can come back and show you what, no, I'm not having that problem. And if maybe they're not having that problem, maybe they don't need your solution. Or if they are, then they're like, yes.
So you're making sure that people can tell you no and things of that nature. But you talked about what you're doing before the call. You talked about the beginning of the call. Let's talk about in the middle of the actual call. How are you keeping a prospect engaged? Because it's very easy for people to like not pay attention, look at another screen. I don't know. Even why? I mean, some people probably like watching a video while they're like listening. It's super easy for people just to ignore what you're saying. So how do you keep people engaged?
The first thing, and I might be old school. I don't know. I love to have my camera on, and I really try to get everybody to have their camera on in a meeting. And I do like to watch body language. So one thing I will do on my meetings is I will actually center the video of the person. So I'm sort of always looking at them and I can just understand, are they looking down? Can I see they're looking at another screen? And also asking engaging questions. So trying not to talk for just 70% of the time, like actually have them engaged and pique their curiosity. So having long monologues is bad in my book in meetings. So you really want to ask questions and try to get that sort of you're trying to play catch with the person, have them throw back answers and questions too.
Okay, so let's actually extend it. Let's say you get multiple people on the call. How do you keep them engaged?
Well, and this is really a lot of times what I see if you have maybe, let's say two to 5 or 6 people on a call, you'll typically find who the point person is, who the person that is just going to be answering all the questions. But a lot of times in that person can hog the meeting, I would say. You always want to like ask the other people in the room, even if their cameras are off or whatever, their mics are muted, ask them, do you have any other input? Is this how you feel? Because a lot of times the business owner could be having problems that the frontline people aren't even seeing, or the business owner thinks everything's cool, but really you're showing a big feature and a big pain point that somebody on the front lines would actually use. And I really love to use like a case study as well to a similar customer of how they would use that product or someone similar in that same pain. So that's really good to have a case study or a customer success story that you can pull from and say, we worked with X client and they had the same exact problems as you all. And then they implemented X and then they were able to, do X.
When you're looking at the meeting, let's say we run it really well, they're engaged. How do you set up next steps so that you're including multiple decision makers and you can basically move the velocity of this deal?
Well, and this is where I actually use Calendly, and it's a good tool to actually be able to make those next steps. So I'll use a real world example that I did today. So I am selling to an agency at Hyros. So basically this agency they might have 50 to 100 clients and we're bringing them on as a partner, but then they're going to be bringing on 100 other clients. So on this first disco call, we're just qualifying them, making sure that they're good to go. I'm making sure that all the tech stack is working good. And then I say, okay, we're good to go. Let's get your account signed up. But now I also want to get that next meeting signed up. So I will already have Calendly in my Chrome extension browser and I'll click that. I'll already have the next discovery meeting ready to go in there. I can just click that. I can either share that on the Zoom link and just bring it up to the person and have them sign up, or I can just send them that link and click it and they can just do it themselves. And I can just say, hey, just here's the meeting link, go sign up the next steps. I think the biggest thing is, next steps are always great to talk about, but if you can actually get them to book the meeting, it's huge, and Calendly makes that very seamless and easy.
Very it's just like, all right,
game changer. Like I use it every day. I mean, and if you don't have that on your Chrome extension, that's helpful. And then also, I use it also in the LinkedIn, where you can do it as DM.
It's great there. Yeah. And I think it's a really good way to obviously store data as well, because it can go through the CRM and all those different things. And so that's a really good call out. And I'm actually curious because we talked about sellers having a lot of conversations. You're talking to a lot of different people. You have use cases that are happening. Everyone in 2024 and beyond will be talking about AI, or I always like to call it Allen Iverson. So when it comes to AI, have you started to tap more into it and you're excited about it? Are you like, I'm still learning? Where are you with this?
So I love AI. I think it's I think it's a really cool, it's good. It's very powerful. I was just reading a book by Jeb Blunt, and it's all about AI. And he really in the first 4 chapters, he's just talking about, and this is something that I need to be aware of, is a lot of times I'll use some other tools and I'll just click the go and then send, and I really won't think about it. But you really need to understand what before you push play or before you push send, you're the filter. AI can do a lot of things, but you don't want to just be spamming or just send it out, because it could misinterpret things, and it can really go off on some weird tangents. I use some very, it's interesting. I play with it. I mean, I don't think it's on certain things. It's really great. Like for podcasts, there's a really great tool that I use that can ingest audio and then bring it to text format. I think that's great. But being able to communicate with people, I think that is something that it's not there yet. And having a full CRM, like take all the meeting notes and input everything, you still have to have that human touch.
You do. And I think if you completely let automation and everything take advantage of that, that's like probably the worst thing you can do. But to your point, the AI allows you to do the manual task at speed, and then obviously add in your personality. So, and speaking of personality, as we wrap this up, you mentioned a lot of different frameworks and things that you do that's a science. But what's one thing that you, Chase, alone do that makes you unique in your sales process that maybe people could try out themselves?
So this is a super secret approach. And one of the things that I would, I don't know, this is just what I do. But at the end of all conversations, like even if a prospect came in to buy something from me, I will always ask at the end, is there anything that you need help with? Are you looking for an employee? Are you looking for a new client? And a lot of times that'll just like break the ice, and people will be like, well, actually I am looking for a agency, or I'm looking to run PPC, or I'm looking for a new sales hire. And I'm like, well, you know what? I would love to make an introduction for you. And so that's another way after a meeting for me not to just have like a personal follow-up, but it's like, hey, I want to introduce you to this person. And making one-to-one intros has been game changer in my life.
Well, I hope that some people take that information. I like the way that you're thinking outside of just the sales cycle. You're figuring out how to help them as a professional, right? Which obviously goes a long way for wherever they go moving forward and how to help them. So I hope everyone listening in, you now how to run an impactful meeting from a seller's perspective. You got some awesome ways on to potentially use AI and go out there and close some deals. So thank you all for tuning in, and go take some action.